All right, UFC Fight Night London this Saturday night from the O2 Arena. In the main event, Leon Rocky Edwards returns after his title fight loss last year in Manchester against the current champion Belal Muhammad as he takes on Sean Brady, 17-1, with the only loss being to the current champion Muhammad. Brady coming off of a Fight Night main event win in the Apex over Gilbert Burns last September. We've got 13 fights in this UFC Apex card, including a co-main event spot between Jan Blachowicz and Carlos Ulberg, and Molly McCann gets to fight an 0-4 fighter in the UFC on this card. It's disgusting. Kevin Holland's also fighting. He's fighting Gunnar Nelson. We'll talk about all that and more as we get on with our weekly UFC predictions. And folks, before we get into the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for some more weekly UFC predictions here on the channel. The PFL is coming up in a couple weeks. Make sure to join us for that video. We also posted every problem with the UFC Apex earlier this week, so make sure to go check that video out. Also, make sure to go subscribe to the main channel, Greedo Plays. We have, of course, daily NBA and college basketball best bets over there. All right, let's get on to the first of our 13 fights. Full transparency, I'm recording this video on very early Wednesday morning. I'm gonna be gone for the weekend, so I gotta get this video out, or gotta make this video earlier in the week. If any adjustments have been made to this card, I will leave an update in the description down below. If the main event changes, you're probably not watching this video, so I don't know why I said that. Anyways, let's start with our first of the 13 fights, and we start in the lightweight division between Guram Kutateladze and Fernandes. Give me Guram Kutateladze. Not much, anticipation for this pick. I think it's a fairly easy one to make. Guram is now 33 years old, which is crazy, because I remember Guram's first fight in the UFC. Now, we all expected Mateusz Gamrot to beat him, obviously, on Fight Island. It was a split decision that Guram ended up winning. Now, obviously, again, we all thought Gamrot won the fight, but we thought after that win for Kutateladze, we thought both him and Gamrot were going to be staples of the top 15 very shortly after. Now, Gamrot, obviously, is well in the top 10, but for Guram since, man, the loss to Damir Ismagulov, the fight after beating Gamrot, he loses to Ismagulov in a very close fight that he probably should have won. The Elvis Brenner fight, I wouldn't say dominating, but winning the first 2 rounds in that fight. Brenner comes back, TKOs him in the third, and then comes back and looks like he's in trouble against Jordan Vucenic last year in Abu Dhabi, ends up beating Vucenic, coming back, winning the second and the third rounds after getting dropped and dominated in the first round. And obviously, we'll talk about Vucenic, the former Cage Warriors champion. He's later on in this card, but it's kind of crazy, right? Guram's the opener, and Vucenic is, in the prelims, but later on in the night. Kutateladze, again, a 2-2 run in the UFC. Obviously, this has not been what we thought Kutateladze was going to be in the promotion, but they have kind of thrown him, I don't want to say an easy opponent, but a fight that he should definitely win. I don't think any of us are expecting him to lose to Fernandes tonight, or this Saturday, obviously. Fernandes, 1-1 in the UFC first fight, a split decision loss to Mark DeCasey. That was, when Mark DeCasey was full in his, I'm a wrestler phase, and I guess he's still kind of doing that. I don't know. But DeCasey just wrestled Fernandes the entire fight, obviously took the kickboxer down and didn't allow the kickboxer to do much in that fight. After that for Fernandes, right, he got Muhammad Yahya in Abu Dhabi, same card where Kutateladze beat Vucenic. It was a dominant one-sided beatdown because Muhammad Yahya isn't very good at fighting. The only reason he's in the UFC is because he's from Abu Dhabi. I hate to say it, but it's true. So Fernandes, we know he's got power. We know he can start fast. Former Shoot-Though champion, went over to LFA, was 2-1 over there, got a shot in the UFC after back-to-back first-round TKO victories. As long as he doesn't catch Kutateladze in the first round, Guram should be able to beat him. I think Guram's just a better all-around guy. Yes, Fernandes does have, decent power for the weight class. He is quick with his kicks. But again, as long as Guram doesn't get tagged early in the fight, I don't expect him to lose to Nova Niau's guy here in Fernandes. Also, Fernandes does not look like he's 30 years old. This guy looks like he's 40 in some pictures. I guess this picture on the screen I have right now he doesn't look that old. But in other pictures, man, Fernandes looks old as hell. I think Guram wins. Again, we got to look at the long-term thing here, though, for Guram Kutateladze now. You're 33 years old. You're fighting on the first fight of a fight night in London. You're 3-2. I mean, we got to start making that push eventually, right? I mean, I don't think, again, any of us are thinking Guram title hopes anymore, and I don't think we were ever thinking that for Kutateladze, but I was expecting, again, big fights for the guy, top 15 the rest of his career, and now here we are. on the opener, right? I think he beats Fernandes. I think he beats him by decision. I think if Guram gets out of that first round where he has been a slow starter at times, I think he should be fine. I think he should take over the fight all around. Again, I think Kutateladze is the better guy. Give me Guram to open the card, beating Fernandes by unanimous decision. We move on to our second fight of the night, and we go to a matchup here between Nathan Fletcher and Loughran in the bantamweight division. Fletcher 9-1 coming off of his win. After the Ultimate Fighter, he lost in the semifinals of the Ultimate Fighter. They ended up giving Fletcher a shot in the UFC anyway against Zigomanis Ramaska. He ends up winning the fight by arm triangle choke in the second round. It was a fight that Fletcher was a slight favorite in, and now his second UFC bout is against the former Cage Warriors champ in one Loughran, who, let's be honest, Loughran's been a little bit disappointing in the UFC. He just has. I didn't think Loughran, again, was going to be an elite guy, but Cage Warriors champ comes in his first fight, loses to Taylor Leiplus, which is weird because, Leiplus just got cut from the UFC. I fully expect him to either land in the PFL or the Global Fight League, but I don't know why you get rid of Leiplus, who was, 3-1 in his second UFC stint, and we're going back to Paris in September anyway. If you really wanted to get rid of him, just throw him a very tough opponent, and if he loses, then just cut him. I don't know. Something behind the scenes had to have happened with Taylor Leiplus getting cut. Regardless, Loughran back-to-back fights after that, beats Angel Pacheco in a fight that he's supposed to win. He wins it by unanimous decision, has his way with Pacheco in that one in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and then his last fight, obviously losing Jake Hadley. Jake Hadley's not bad, but man, I think we were expecting Loughran to look a little bit better than he did in that fight. He couldn't get it takedown. He was getting outstruck on the feet. He was getting pieced for the most part by Hadley. And again, Hadley just, I'm not gonna say ran circles around him, but won every single round in that fight. For Nathan Fletcher, again, lost to Khan Ofli on the Ultimate Fighter semifinals round. I believe it was the semifinals. Losing the fight by unanimous decision over there, comes to the UFC, beat Zigomanis Ramaska, looks good in the fight, gets multiple takedowns, dominates the fight on the mat, and again, eventually gets the submission. And that's what Fletcher is going to do to you. He has a very good ground game. Something that I think is going to be really difficult for Loughran, because this is a striker versus a grappler. That's really all this is. Yes, Loughran has the kickboxing background. He can put you out in the feet if he does catch you, but man, the all-around wrestling and grappling game out of the British fighter and Nathan Fletcher really makes me worried about Loughran on this one. And honestly, contracts on the line here. I mean, how they cut Leiplus, who Loughran's lost to. I don't know if Pacheco's still in the UFC. Has Pacheco fought since that fight? He hasn't, right? But Pacheco lost in the contender. He's probably on his way out as well. I mean, I don't really think, if Loughran can't win this fight, I don't think he's remaining in the promotion. I think he's going back to Cage Warriors. And I hate to say it, I think it's a very tough fight for him. I don't know if Fletcher's going to be able to get a sub or not. Loughran's never been submitted. He's a guy, again, who does look to wrestle in his own right, obviously, like he did in the Pacheco fight, like he did in the Hadley fight, held the Leiplus fight as well. But as I'm comparing this fight and calling Loughran a kickboxer for the point of, yes, he was a kickboxer coming into the UFC, and at least in this fight, he has to result to the kickboxing, because if he doesn't, I don't think he stands a chance, honestly, against Fletcher. If he just tries to wrestle Nathan Fletcher, I think he's going to get beat. I think he's going to get out-scrambled, and I think he's going to find himself in a lot of very bad positions. Ultimately, I think Fletcher gets the fight down there anyway. If we do see a kickboxing affair, I'll be very interested. But I do think Fletcher's going to be able to push the pace on the ground. I think he's going to be able to actively pursue those takedowns, and I think he's going to make it really tough on Loughran in this fight. The question for me is, are we taking Fletcher by sub, or are we taking him by decision? I'm going to go submission. I think if Fletcher has him on the ground for an extended period of time, I think eventually he'll find a way to get that sub. Again, I don't know what Zigomanis Ramaska is going to be in the UFC. I don't even know if he's going to get another fight, but Ramaska kind of reminds me of Loughran to a sense. I don't think his all-around wrestling's as good as Loughran, but maybe it is. Ramaska does have some very credible grappling experience, and Fletcher made it look easy with the takedowns and the submission that he got against Ramaska. Again, I don't know where to place Ramaska in the UFC because he hasn't fought since. But if Fletcher's able to do that in his UFC debut, I expect him to be able to find a way to a submission against Loughran, and I think Nathan Fletcher's going to be able to get this one done. I'm taking the British fighter to win in his home country, and I expect him to pull off the submission over the former Cage Warriors champion, the Irish Loughran. We go on to our third fight, and we move to the women's strawweight division. It's the first of two women's strawweight fights. And we get Shanna Bannon taking on the only, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the only Indian female fighter in Tomar. I think it's a tough fight for Shanna Bannon. I really think it is. I'm kind of split on the pick because, yes, it's women's MMA, and the Tomar signing was odd to me in the first place, if I'm being honest with you guys. Not the best background in one championship. She fought in one. She was 1-3 over there, proceeded to win four fights in a row against Jojo Rajkumari, who was making her professional debut by split decision. Tomar wins by first round knockout against a 2-1 fighter. She beats Killer B, but guys, B Nguyen, she's 6-8. What is she now? 6-9, and she's fighting in the Global Fight League. I can't treat a win over Killer B. I can't treat it with any, like, I don't know what you want me to do with it. Tomar's last win prior to the UFC over Anastasia Fiofanova. Not a bad win. TKO win at the end of the 4th round, winning the Matrix Fight Night Championship, or at least retaining it. When you really dive deeper, though, into Anastasia's run, it really hasn't fought the best fighters, but it's weird to judge regional European strawweight MMA, if I'm being honest with you. And now Tomar's only fight in the UFC. It's a win over Ryan Amanda, or Ryan dos Santos, whatever she's going by. Did I think Tomar won? Probably. I'll give her the first 2 rounds. It was just a women's strawweight fight. I'll just be honest, guys. It was a women's strawweight fight that Tomar won. Again, there wasn't much controversy around it, I thought. 2 judges had her winning one judge had Tomar 30-27. The other judges, one judge had Dos Santos Amanda, whoever she goes by, 30-27. The other one has Tomar 30-27. And then Derek clearly was the tie-breaking judge at 29-28 for Tomar. What? That kind of goes to show what the hell that fight was. Tamar's striking's all right. She has no ground game, and if Shanna Bannon's able to successfully pull off a takedown, she's going to win. The thing is, that's not what she does. She barely beat Elise Adderlin in her last fight, and she couldn't get a takedown against Elise. Elise was actually the one. She was the one getting the takedowns. Oh, man. Shanna Bannon's just, I don't know. She kind of slugs, not really slugs it on the feet, but, like, I don't know. She's not impressive. She couldn't take down Bruna Brazil, ended up losing the fight. Guys, I think she's going to lose. I'm going to take Puat Tomar. I'm gonna take the Indian fighter here. I'm taking Tomar by decision. Shanna Bannon has literally showed me nothing in the UFC yet. She doesn't have a ground game really. She kind of just strikes and, kind of hopes that she can outstrike her opponent. I don't know, how did Shanna Bannon get in the UFC? Like, honestly, she was not the Invicta champion. She wins a fight in Invicta against a 7-4 fighter. She loses to Bruna Brazil, and then she barely beats Alice Ardeline, who was 9-5, now 9-7 out of the UFC because she lost to Melissa Martinez. I don't even know how they got her to be in the UFC. Where do they get these fighters, man? Where do they get them? But the thing is, they're not going to cut Shanna Bannon, because I know who Shanna Bannon's going to fight in her next fight after she loses to Puat Tomar. She's going to fight Molly McCann. I guarantee it. They'll probably, I don't know, maybe next year in Europe. Oh, they'll just do it again. Oh, next time they're in England. Oh, Molly McCann versus Shanna Bannon. I will give Shanna Bannon credit. She does swing on the feet. But I think Tomar's going to be better, if I'm being honest. And yes, Tomar does not have a ground game, but neither does Shanna Bannon. So who's going to win the kickboxing fight? I'm going to go with Puat Tomar. I don't think Bannon's that good. Don't bet it. It's female MMA. But yes, we are taking a dog here, and it's not the worst dog. It's women's MMA. That's all I'm going to say. Next up, we go to a fight where I'm very surprised the odds are where they're at. We have a minus 670 favorite. Yes, 670 favorite in Christian Leroy Duncan against the plus 475 dog in Andre Pulyaev. I'm surprised. I'll leave it at that. I don't think CLD should be this big of a favorite. And I thought maybe the odds were wrong, but I checked 2 different books. At least I looked it up twice on 2 different books. And yes, as of early Wednesday morning, they have Christian Leroy Duncan as a minus 670 favorite. I don't really know if CLD should be this big of a favorite against anybody. Trust me, I like Christian Leroy Duncan. I think he's a good fighter. I just don't know if these are the odds he should be getting. Now, does this fight kind of look like the Claudio Ribeiro fight and the Dennis Tululin fight, where it's just obvious mismatches and they're trying to get CLD a victory? Potentially, right? Because Christian Leroy Duncan's coming off of a main card pay-per-view loss to RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez on the Leon Edwards fight card against Bilal Muhammad. They give him Andrea Pulyaev in Pulyev's UFC debut. He is an Alexander Shlemenko guy, winning on the Contender Series by unanimous decision against Liam Anderson. He was a dog on that card, and he ended up winning. Now, again, Pulyaev has not beaten anybody of note. He's beating 1-0 guys, 2-1 guys, 38-21-1 guys prior to, again, getting the shot in the Contender Series. I'll be honest, don't know where they found him. I didn't really think he did anything of note to warrant the contract. Liam Anderson was his opponent. He was trying to wrestle him a lot, and Pulyaev, again, does outstrike him, but nothing all that crazy that made me think, all right, the UFC's got to have him. I don't know. Now, again, I don't think CLD should be this big of a favorite against any UFC fighter, but obviously, we expect Christian Leroy Duncan to win. I think Pulyaev is still very green. He's 27 years old. He made his professional MMA debut in 2022. So, he's been in the sport for now coming up on 3 years this year. It's not a lot of time in the sport. Christian Leroy Duncan, a former Cage Warriors champion, and I understand, again, the weight of being Cage Warriors champion doesn't have the weight that it once had. Let's just be honest. It doesn't. But again, this is a guy who was the Cage Warriors champion, who's getting finishes left and right over there in that promotion, comes into the UFC, beats Dusko Todorovic. Obviously, that's the fight where Todorovic had the knee injury, but still, win for CLD. Petrosyan beats Leroy Duncan. Back-to-back victories for CLD over Tululin and Ribeiro, and then obviously the loss to Gregory Rodriguez by unanimous decision. It was a good step up in competition that obviously Leroy Duncan just couldn't pass. This is a huge step down. And I get it, Rodriguez is coming off the loss to Jared Cannonier in the main event in the Apex a couple weeks ago, but man, this is a step down in competition for Christian Leroy Duncan. He should be able to have his way in this fight. He really should. I think, again, it's going to be a striking, it'll be mostly striking based out of CLD. I think there's a lot of holes in the Pulyaev game. I just don't think he's ready for this test yet. Again, yes, the odds are a little bit crazy, I'm not going to lie, but I know what this fight is. This is to get Christian Leroy Duncan a win in England, to get the crowd going on the undercard. It's a reason it's in this spot. I expect Christian Leroy Duncan to run right through Andre Pulyaev, and CLD should be able to win the fight by first round knockout. Pulyaev 9-2. Don't know where they got this guy from. Hasn't really beaten anybody of note, again, except for Liam Anderson. But at the same time, guys, Liam Anderson is now 6-3 in professional MMA. Sure, 3 wins in LFA in his own right, but man, again, it's just not the most impressive victory. And Pulyaev didn't even get a finish on the Contender. So give me Christian Leroy Duncan to make short work of him. I'm taking CLD by first round knockout. We go on to our next fight, and we move to the heavyweight division, as we have got the number 9 ranked, if I'm not mistaken, Marcin Tybura taking on the number 13th ranked McParkin. Obviously, Mick Parkin. He is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he has trained with Tom Aspinall. I don't know if he still trains with Aspinall. But I think he still trains with Aspinall. Up-and-coming British MMA heavyweight Mick Parkin, 4-0 in the UFC, coming off his biggest victory to date in his last one over Lucas Brzeski, picking up the first-round knockout. Don't know why they scheduled him Lucas Brzeski, but they did, and he made short work of Brzeski like he was expected to, right? Parkin now 4-0 in the UFC, comes into the promotion, beats Jamal Pogues in his first fight, beats Kyle Machado in his second, beats Muhammad Usman, and then obviously just knocked out Lucas Brzeski. This is a huge step up in competition, 100%, but it's a test that I think he honestly should pass. I'll be honest with you. Marcin Tybura is getting old. He's 39 years old, coming up now on 40. I don't know, again, when his 40th birthday is, but Tybura is not getting any younger. He's still at 8 months till his 40th birthday. Tybura looked bad in his... Oh, he beat Jonathan Deniz. I keep forgetting about that fight. He did beat Jonathan Deniz. Oh, he did win that fight. That's why the odds are where they're at. Oh, I get it, I guess. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys. I forgot the Deniz fight happened. I was thinking right of the Spivak fight. I still think Parkin wins. It doesn't really change my mind on this. I just kind of forgot that Tybura has won. It was a TKO stoppage or doctor stoppage, but yes, Tybura was winning. I still think Parkin's better. I think Parkin should be able to outstrike Marcin Tybura. I'm not telling you, again, Parkin's going to have this huge rise to the top like Tom Aspinall had. And obviously, again, Parkin is not on the level of Tom Aspinall. But don't look now. If Parkin wins this fight, now we have 2 top 10 British heavyweights. And I do think, obviously, he is going to beat Tybura. I think it's a very clear pathway to victory for Parkin. And I get, again, this is what Tybura kind of is in the weight class now, right? After the loss to Spivak, they're never going to treat him seriously as a top 7-ish guy. He's just a gatekeeper. If he can beat Parkin, though, they probably will reward him with the top 10 guy. But right now, they're just trying to get Tybura out the top 10. They don't want him here. The only use that they have of him now is a stepping stone for guys because they really don't even want to use him as a headlining name on the UFC Apex cards. Because again, the Spivak fight was the last time they wanted to do that. Now, credit to Tybura, he did main event 3 straight fight nights Aspinall, Tuivasa, and Spivak. But again, like Tybura was for Aspinall, this should be a stepping stone for Mick Parkin to advance down to the top 10 of the weight class. I think there's an easy pathway to success here for Parkin. I don't mind Mick Parkin's wrestling just in general in terms of his defensive wrestling and his offensive wrestling as well. Parkin's got the wrestling skills which a lot of heavyweights lack, and his all-around boxing's pretty solid too. Again, he might not be that one-punch knockout guy, but he is going to out-volume you, he's going to jab you into oblivion, and he is going to stay on you the entire fight. He just makes it really difficult in fighters, and especially in this one, again, Parkin is 10 years younger than Marcin Tybura. I think stylistically it's just a really tough fight for Tybura. I think it is. Because how does he beat Mick Parkin? Well, I think it's through the feet, obviously. I don't think he's going to be able to take down Parkin, and even if he does, I don't think he's going to be able to see extreme levels of success that way. I think Tybura's best pathway to success is by trying to outstrike Parkin in that same regard, like he did against Jonathan Deniz, an undefeated fighter that he beat, obviously. I think that was at Madison Square Garden. It was, right? Like we saw in Tybura's victory over Walt Harris, right? He outstruck Harris, eventually got the finish on the ground. I think that has to be his approach in this fight, to try to, again, at least challenge Parkin on the feet, get him swinging, and then maybe if he wants to switch levels, obviously, or change levels, obviously, and shoot for the hips and try to, maybe work in the clinch, that's where Tybura goes. Because obviously, yes, that's where Tybura is the best. We saw that in the Tai Tuivasa win. That's why I was so surprised that Spivak made such short work of him over the summer in 2024. But it is what it is, right? I mean, I think Parkin should be able to stop those takedowns. I think Mick Parkin should be able to fight the fight he wants to fight, right? I think, again, wherever Parkin wants it, where it's probably going to be on the feet, I'd be surprised if he actively wants to take down Tybura. I think he should be able to beat him. I think Parkin's the quicker striker. Power-wise, Tybura's never had the most power. And Tybura's been knocked out 5 times in his UFC run, or at least in his professional MMA career, probably in the UFC. Derek Lewis, Adur Kimov, Sakai, Aspinall, and once at M1, but still, right? I mean, he is a very beatable guy on the feet. But if you can't get on Tybura early, he is going to try to grind the fight out. I mean, like we saw in the Ben Rothwell fight, which is one of his better striking performances ever, which is crazy. It's, Ben Rothwell in the big 2020, but still, right? I mean, Tybura was, finding ways to use his jab, really bloodying up Rothwell in that fight, and then again just tired Rothwell out as the fight went on by getting him in the clinch, working back up against the cage, and big win over a guy. I know it's 5 years ago now, but a big win over a guy who's the BKFC heavyweight champion, right? I think Mick Parkin though wins. I think he's quicker than Tybura, and I think he's able to fight this fight better than Tybura is. I'm gonna take Mick Parkin to win the fight. I'm gonna go unanimous decision. I could see the knockout. But I mean, when you look at Parkin's fights, I mean, he went the distance with Jamal Pogues, Kyle Machado, Muhammad Usman. I don't think he's got enough to finish Tybura, and I think this maybe is what does hold Parkin back eventually in the top 10 of the weight class. I mean, again, Parkin's 29 years old, making his way into the top 10. Again, he's fighting a 39-year-old who's been in the top 10 for the last 5 years, right? I mean, Parkin's ahead of schedule for 265 pounds, right? I mean, this is a young guy for the heavyweight division. I just don't know what his, long-term success route is. Doesn't have the most power. Yes, he can out-volume you, but that doesn't always... It's not always the best combination of heavyweight, but sometimes it is, because heavyweight fighters sometimes just suck. So we'll see how this goes. In this fight specifically, though, we're going with Mick Parkin. He's 10-0. We're going to take him to go to 11-0. Remaining undefeated, the British Mick Parkin outstrikes Marcin Tybura, stuffs the takedowns, and wins the fight by unanimous decision. Let's move on to the flyweight division. We got a matchup here between Lonnie Kavanagh, making his second outing in the UFC, taking on Felipe dos Santos. 2 younger guys in the flyweight division. Kavanagh, 25 years old. Felipe dos Santos, 24 years old. Both these guys with, some levels of hype, I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I think the hype has definitely worn off of Felipe dos Santos, right? I mean, he came in his first fight in the UFC, main card of a pay-per-view, UFC 293, Adesanya Strickland, and he takes Manel Kape to the distance. Now, obviously, that fight is most well known from Manel Kape's, post-fight speech. That's something, but still, a competitive fight against a guy in Manel Kape now who is likely fighting for the belt next. I would hope so. I mean, what else do we have? I think he should they're going to give Kara France the fight after 1 win over Urseg. Oh, God, it should be Manel Kape. Anyways, they'll probably make Kape for the winner of Urseg and Moreno now, or Royval, or just run the Royval fight back. Or, hey, Tatsuro Taira, or where has Kaya Sakura been? I don't know. We haven't heard anything out of Kaya Sakura. Maybe on his YouTube. I don't know. I don't watch him. Anyways, Kavanagh versus Felipe dos Santos. Again, 2 younger guys in the weight class, right? Kavanagh coming in from the Contender Series. I think there's a very high level of hype for Lonnie Kavanagh. I mean, I knew Kavanagh was going into the Contender. winning in Cage Warriors, looked really good on the Contender as well. I mean, he knocked out Antoine Ho in the first round with a left hook. Very rare you see that type of power at 125 pounds. That's what Lonnie Kavanagh possesses. His first fight in the UFC, I'll be honest, left a lot to be desired. Okay, he won the fight, right? I thought he won rounds 1 and 3 fairly easily against Jose Ocha. The second round, it could have gone either way, but again, 1 and 3 were definitely Kavanagh rounds. Okay, he wins the fight, but man, I was expecting a finish. They gift you an opportunity in China, fight night card, in front of a crowd, and you don't really capitalize. I don't know, just especially coming off of his Contender Series victory, I was expecting more out of Kavanagh, because here's one of these guys at 125 pounds who does have a lot of power. He can get you out of there, something that a lot of flyweights can't really do. Now, you look at his opponent here in the Brazilian, Felipe dos Santos, again, only 24 years of age, but now 1 and 2 in the UFC, right? Gets signed to fight Manel Kape on short notice, because originally it was supposed to be Kape and Kai Kara-France. Dos Santos then beats Victor Altamirano after that by split decision. Close fight. Altamirano is wrestling the entire fight. Doesn't really do any damage in the feet, so they give the fight to Dos Santos. Got no problem with it. But then Dos Santos, his next fight in the UFC, loses to Andre Lima, and he just kind of gets ragdolled the entire fight in the second and the third round. Lima just out-wrestles him the entire fight. This is a fight, though, we're not going to be really concerned about the grappling, and that's obviously, again, where Dos Santos is at his worst. Because, again, we saw in the Manel Kape, he's able to hold his own against Kape. Yeah, obviously, Kape won the fight, Kape knocked him down in the fight, but one fight of the night at UFC 293, right? We know Dos Santos can hang with some of the best guys in the weight class, at least striking-wise. But we saw in the Altamirano and the Lima fight, he can't really wrestle all that effectively. Well, here you go, taking on pretty much a pure striker in Kavanagh. Yeah, Kavanagh can mix it up on the ground, but for the most part, Lonnie Kavanagh is looking to strike with you. Makes it interesting. It really makes it interesting because we are going to see a stylistically decent matchup for Felipe dos Santos against a guy in Lonnie Kavanagh who is fun. He's a dynamic striker. I think it's got all the makings of a really good fight. I'm going to take Lonnie Kavanagh, though. I think Kavanagh, again, I think he's the more hyped up prospect, obviously, and I think he's able to catch Dos Santos in a lot of spots here, if I'm being honest. Again, I think it's an extremely close fight. Don't get me wrong. I just think Kavanagh is slightly better, personally. And then Kavanagh is going to be able to find a way to close distance in this one. Kavanagh is the shorter fighter. He's 5'4". Dos Santos is 5'7". I mean, the reach disadvantage is only 3 inches. For Kavanagh, he's got a 67-inch reach. Dos Santos 70-inch reach. I think that'll be okay. I think Kavanagh is able to close distance. I think he's able to blitz here. I don't really know where to gauge the Dos Santos-Manel Kape fight now, honestly, right? Because, again, Manel Kape's only seen, really a lot of success since that fight. We're going to forget about the Muhammad Mokaev fight. But we've seen Kape have a lot of success, obviously, likely in a title shot situation soon. And Dos Santos really hasn't, shown up since. I don't know. I think we might see Kavanagh, threatened with the takedown. I think we might. Because it's been such a glaring weakness in the game of Dos Santos recently. But I think ultimately, again, with the threat of the takedown and Kavanagh mixing it up, I think he does win the fight. I'm going to take Lonnie Kavanagh by decision. I don't think he gets to finish in this one. If Manel Kape wasn't able to finish Felipe dos Santos, I don't think Lonnie Kavanagh will be able to either. But at the same time, Manel Kape has, he is on a different level now than he was, in the Dos Santos fight. And honestly, we've just seen a different Kape in his last 2 fights, and I'd really like to see him fight for the belt. I'm going to give me Lonnie Kavanagh to win the fight by unanimous decision. I really hope they don't cut Felipe dos Santos here. He's only 24 years old. You've given him some tough fights. Give him a very winnable fight next. Give him a CJ Vergara. I love the Picasso of MMA, Ode Osborne, but give him an Ode Osborne, right? I know Ode's got a fight coming up. Don't give him, Rico Rodriguez, who's another up-and-coming prospect. Don't do that next. Give Felipe dos Santos a guy you should easily be able to beat. Give him a Jose Johnson. Give him something like that. If you can't beat Jose Johnson, just get him out of here, right? Give him a better fight next. Don't cut him just yet. Give me Lonnie Kavanagh, though, in this fight to beat Felipe dos Santos. He'll get it done by unanimous decision. To our next fight, we move now to the featured prelim in the lightweight division. We've got the Black Country Banger, Jai Herbert, taking on Taco Chris Padilla. Fun fight, man. Really fun fight. I expect someone to get knocked out. If they don't, I'd be very surprised. The way Chris Padilla fights and the way, Jai Herbert fights and the way Jai Herbert's chin is, yeah, I'd be very surprised if there's not a knockout. Now, the odds do surprise me as well. You look at him, Jai Herbert's a favorite. -135. Chris Padilla comes back at +110. Chris Padilla has been great at plus money in his UFC career. I mean, we picked him to beat Rong Zhu in his last fight in September. It was that Gilbert Burns and Sean Brady card. +200 dog we cashed with Chris Padilla in that fight. Finishing Rong Zhu, getting the doctor stoppage in the second round. This is a guy, again, who really, had some tough fights in the regional scene, but has always been around, went on a little bit of a run, beat the guitar hero Justin James in his final regional fight, finally got signed to the UFC, back-to-back victories, again, over James Lontop and Rong Zhu. He was an underdog in both. Why not make it 3 fights in a row? Give me Chris Padilla to win his 3rd straight fight in the UFC as an underdog. It's an extremely winnable fight for him. Guys, I think we're forgetting that Jai Herbert's 36 years old. He's 36, about to turn 37. Padilla is the much younger guy, even though I think he's got more fights than Jai Herbert, because Padilla, again, has been around in the regional scene. But Padilla, 29, Jai Herbert, 36, going to turn 37 in a couple months. And man, I always just worry about the chin of Jai Herbert. Now, the chin, I'm not going to lie, has been a lot better recently, right? I mean, it looked like early in Jai Herbert's career, and this was definitely a thing, if you touched him once in the feet, he's going to get cracked. And it was just a matter of time before he'd go down, right? And I'll always remember the fight that he had against Ilia Topuria. It was a 1-round war, a 6-minute war. Jai Herbert cracks Ilia Topuria with a head kick in the first round. And this is Topuria's only fight in the UFC at 155 pounds, by the way. Took this fight on short notice to fight Jai Herbert to get on the England card, the London card. Jai Herbert cracks Topuria with the head kick. And you're thinking, oh, wow, Jai Herbert is a plus 400 dog. He's going to cash against Topuria. Topuria does recover. It's the most adversity we've seen Ilia Topuria deal with so far in his UFC run. And it was because of Jai Herbert. Now, again, Topuria comes back. He ends up hitting Jai Herbert with a really nice overhand. And Jai Herbert, that's the fight where he kind of just gets sent flying. Or it's a right hook. But Herbert's the one throwing the overhand. Topuria counters underneath with a hook. And you kind of just see Herbert just, he just goes flying after he gets hit because he's trying to land the overhand. He just, that was a horrible reenactment, but he just goes flying after the knockout. And I kind of thought that was it for Jai Herbert, but he's come back. And the thing with Jai Herbert, though, the Black Country Banger, you're going to get a fun fight out of him. He's so incredibly fun to watch. All of his fights are high pace, and again, you're probably going to see a finish. Recently, though, it's been 4 straight decisions. Now, he is 2-1-1 in those last 4 results. Win over Kyle Nelson in a fight that he just needed to win to stay in the UFC. Had a draw at Ludovic Klein, which actually isn't all that bad. Losing to Fares Ziam, back then I was like, oh, that's a really bad loss. But now Ziam on a win streak, potentially top 15 opponent coming up next for him. And then Rolando Bedoya winning the fight by decision. He drops Bedoya in Abu Dhabi in August. Not a bad win at all for Jai Herbert. I really think it was a pretty solid victory. I just think this fight's really tough for him, if I'm being honest. I think Padilla cracks the chin. I just think he does. I don't expect any takedowns to be shot here. If there are takedowns shot, it's going to be Chris Padilla. If Padilla can't figure out his range on the feet, because Jai Herbert is a huge lightweight, right? He's 6'1", Padilla's 5'9". So I think, again, if there is some wrestling and some grappling, it will be initiated by Padilla, because I don't know, again, maybe Herbert's really using the jab effectively. I don't see it, though. I mean, I've seen shorter fighters like Ilia Topuria, and I get it, Topuria's excellent, right? But we've seen guys like Topuria. Hell, Kama Worthy, when he fought Jai Herbert, did have a little bit of success crashing in and finding, trying to deal with that reach. Obviously, again, Herbert finished him in the first round, but shorter guys like Trinaldo, too. I don't think Trinaldo's La Tortuga. That's not his nickname. That's a baseball player. Francisco Trinaldo, what was his nickname? Masoranduba. Thank you. I don't think, he is as short as Padilla. He's 5'9", and Trinaldo really found his way to crash, and I thought Trinaldo was like 5'11". Yeah, he found his way to crash in, and you're really, again, close distance against Herbert, and he kept tagging him inside. That's what Padilla should do, honestly, and I get it. Herbert has, evolved as a fighter since, but since that initial fight in the UFC, that's the classic Dan Hardy stop the fight, targeted towards Herb Dean, obviously. Herbert's 37 now. The chin's not getting any better. And if, again, Padilla is able to implement anything close to the style of fight that Francisco Trinaldo had against Herbert in his UFC debut, I think Padilla should win. I think he should just do it in a quicker fashion. I like Padilla by first round knockout here. Close distance, find your hooks, and put Jai Herbert down in the first round. We're taking Chris Padilla, 3rd straight fight in the UFC, 3rd straight time as a dog. Give me Chris Padilla to cash one more time. First round knockout. We got to start taking Chris Padilla seriously as a potential top 20, top 25 guy in the lightweight division after his first round knockout victory over the Black Country Banger, Jai Herbert. We move on now to the main card, and we start in the featherweight division. I'm surprised at the odds, real off jump here. Plus 160 for Nathaniel Wood. Morgan Charriere is the favorite at minus 190, and the immediate thing that comes to mind when I see these odds is, are we missing something? Is there something we don't know about both Wood and or Morgan Charriere? Why is Nathaniel Wood such, I mean, he's not a huge dog, but why is he plus 160? The worst I think it should get for Wood is even money here. I thought the odds should honestly be flipped. I don't think I have these wrong. I mean, this is what was on Best Fight Odds. But if Wood was minus 190 and Charriere was plus 160, I wouldn't bat an eye. These odds are a little confusing. Charriere, again, 1-2 in the UFC, sorry, 2-1 in the UFC, only lost to Chepe Mariscal, who's very solid, right? And it was a very competitive fight of the night performance for Morgan Charriere, losing to Mariscal. The other 2 fights in the UFC, a win over Manolo Zinchenny, who has Zinchenny fought in the UFC since? I really don't think he has. And then his last fight being a win over Gabriel Miranda, winning the fight by second round TKO in Paris, France, just as we expected. If you were wondering about Zinchenny, I forgot Zinchenny's from Italy. See, I made a UFC Italy card that should have happened last week. Check out that video. It's linked in the description down below. I forgot about Manolo Zinchenny for that card. Because I'll be honest, I forgot he existed. I think I said Martin Vettori was the only Italian MMA fighter, or the only Italian UFC fighter. Not like Zinchenny's moving tickets, but like I kind of forgot he existed, I'm gonna be honest. Venator, man. Anyways, Charriere 2-1 in the UFC. This is a guy that was lost a lot. He has. And I like Charriere as a prospect. I really do. Morgan Charriere, again, right? 29 years of age. He's had 31 professional fights. This will be walk number 32 for him. But Charriere at the same time has 20 wins and 10 losses. He's lost a lot. Now, don't get me wrong. He's fought some really tough guys in the regionals, right? I mean, the losses he had at the end of his Cage Warriors run, Jordan Vucenic is how he lost the championship. And then he immediately fought Paul Hughes after that and lost. Again, we know how good Paul Hughes is. Just fought Usman Nurmagomedov to a very close decision earlier in the year. And then we know how good Jordan Vucenic is, obviously. I think we know how good Vucenic is. We'll get to him in a little bit. Obviously, Vucenic is coming up. I think he's the next fight. He is. And Vucenic had, almost had Guram Kutateladze beat in his first fight in the UFC. So again, I know how good Charriere is. It's just he's beatable. And these solid guys, like we know Vucenic is good. Nathaniel Wood's on that level too. I'd be surprised if Nathaniel Wood doesn't win the fight. And he has to drop the prospect nickname. He's 31 years old. Dog, you're not a prospect anymore. It's time that you actually try to become a contender. He's 8-3 in the UFC, coming off a victory in his last fight over Daniel Pineda, winning the fight by unanimous decision. He drops Pineda, and it's a one-sided beatdown. Let's just be honest. Pineda's chasing the takedown for most of the fight. Nathaniel Wood, for the most part, is dominating the fight. Pineda had a very wrestle-heavy third round that he won, but the first 2 rounds were won very easily by Nathaniel Wood, obviously pushing him to victory on the scorecards. And I think the pathway of beating Wood is out there. It's by wrestling him. I mean, in his losses, right? I mean, that's what Muhammad Naimov did to him. Naimov got to the hips and wrestled a lot. When John Dodson beat him, though, he landed a very nice overhand and put him out. The Casey Kenny fight was a back-and-forth war. I'm not going to lie. That was back in 2020. Where's Casey Kenny been? Does this guy fight anymore? I don't think he does. That's a name I've not thought about in a minute. Casey Kenny still has not fought since the Song Yadong loss. I mean, this is a guy who is well within the top 25, man. They gave him Dominic Cruz. He was favored to beat Dominic Cruz at one point in time. It was crazy. I don't think Casey Kenny fights anymore, but still. I mean, Nathaniel Woods beat good guys. He's not a bad kickboxer at all. I mean, really uses his kicks to his advantage. He's a high-volume type guy. I think Charriere's got to wrestle him here. I really think so. And Charriere has done that a lot in his early fights in the UFC. Right against Mariscal, looked for some takedowns. Against Miranda, did the same thing. And maybe that's where the odds are, or maybe that's why the odds are where they're at, because the books do expect Charriere to wrestle a lot. They do expect him to take down Nathaniel Wood. I'll be honest, I don't see it. I think Nathaniel Wood is able to stuff these takedowns. I get it, Wood hasn't been the best defensive wrestler in the UFC, but I mean, hell, you look at the stats, 72% takedown defense rate so far in the UFC. I get it, the last image we got of him in the octagon was him being taken down by Pineda in the third round of a fight that he was winning, but ultimately, again, right, Nathaniel Wood won that fight at UFC 304 last July. So I think he beats Morgan Charriere. I think he is able to, buck the hip some. I think he is able to fight off the takedown, and I think Nathaniel Wood ultimately will win the fight by unanimous decision. I do think his kickboxing is better than Morgan Charriere, and it's just a matter of if he can fight off the wrestling. If this fight is on the feet, I do think he wins. Might be a hot take, because I know Charriere is good 100%, I get that. But I think Nathaniel Wood, again, this is not a bad kickboxer. I think we forget about Nathaniel Wood at times. Hell, I forgot about him a couple months ago when I was talking about up-and-coming fighters at 145 pounds, because Nathaniel Wood's just been an up-and-coming fighter for so long. I mean, after this win, I'm serious. Nathaniel Wood needs to call out a top 15 guy. I don't know who that top 15 fighter could be. I will give you a name right now that Nathaniel Wood should call out, because he needs to be fighting in the top 15. This is ridiculous at this point. The easy money fight, it's not easy money, but No, honestly, I'd like to see it. Give him Calvin Kattar. Because it's a winnable fight for Kattar. We saw Kattar win the third round against, Youssef Zalal, and Zalal was definitely running in that third round, but Kattar's coming off 4 straight losses. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Maybe Super Sadiq Youssef, who's outside of the top 15, coming off loss to Diego Lopez, obviously. Wouldn't mind that. Hell, William Gomez, coming off a loss to Hyder Emil. I mean, that's a guy who's in the top 20, right? I know he just lost his first fight in the UFC, but Nathaniel Wood calls him out. You get a main card spot on the France card in September if you fight Gomez. Wouldn't mind it. Those are the fights. Don't call it like a Chepe Mariscal. Don't do that. Don't do that. Edson Barbosa, too. Wouldn't mind. That'd be a close fight. There are, again, it's just at some point in time, this guy's 31 years old. Sure, still very young. I mean, still got time, but eventually you got to make your move in the top 15. I think it's now. Give me the prospect, Nathaniel Wood, to beat Morgan the Pirate Charriere by unanimous decision. We move on to our next fight. We talked about him earlier in the video a couple times, and here he is, the -350 favorite, Jordan Vucenic. Obviously, we are here in the lightweight division as he takes on Chris Duncan, the Scottish-born fighter. I believe he's born in Scotland. Chris Duncan, 12-2 in the UFC. 12-2 in professional MMA, 3-1 in the UFC. Chris Duncan has not been all that bad so far in the promotion. I think this goes to show how much the books respect Jordan Vucenic, how much the UFC respects Jordan Vucenic, and how much the fans respect Jordan Vucenic as well. Vucenic is in his second fight in the UFC, and this guy, again, is a -350 favorite against a guy who has had 4 walks before, and he's come out on top in 3 of those fights. I mean, it's high praise. Now, Duncan's fights, have they been the most impressive? Omar Morales barely beats him. Eshmos was hurt, and he beat Eshmos by decision. Lost to Manuel Torres by first round sub. And then the Balaji Oki win was great. I didn't think he was going to beat Balaji Oki. Not a lot of people thought he was going to. Duncan was an underdog in that fight. Oki shoots for a takedown. From his guard, Duncan finds a way to the guillotine choke, ends up tapping out Balaji Oki in the first round, ends up beating the Zulu Warrior. Really good victory for Duncan. Again, we're not going to deny that. That's his marquee win so far in the UFC, obviously. I just think he's going to struggle on the feet with Vucenic. I think he's going to. Vucenic is an all-action type fighter on the feet. He's got power, and he's also got really good grappling, too. I mean, we didn't see his grappling too much in the fight with Guram because he wasn't able to get that takedown. It's a whole other game, though, against a guy like Duncan. No disrespect to Chris Duncan, but, I mean, we know Guram's better than Chris Duncan. I would at least think so, right? And it's crazy that Guram, again, is on the first fight of this card, and here comes Vucenic on the main card, a fight before the coveted Molly McCann spot coming up. Oh, I'm dreading that. I really am. But I like Vucenic here. Again, we didn't really get to see his wrestling against Guram because, again, yes, you wobbled Guram so early in that fight, and Guram was fighting off the takedowns fairly well in the second and the third round because, again, Vucenic was doing fairly well in the first, obviously. This guy can get submissions, though, man. He really can. Lost the belt, obviously, in Cage Warriors to Paul Hughes. Won it against Morgan Charriere. He's 1-1 with Hughes. It sucks Hughes is in the PFL, but honestly, not a bad move for the guy. I mean, eventually he can still make the move over to the UFC. I just don't know if he's going to be able to get over that Usman Nurmagomedov hump. I know, again, he was very close in the first fight. I just don't know if Hughes can ever beat him. But hell, he's beat AJ McKee already in the PFL. That's a big victory. AJ McKee needs to come over to the UFC. He just has to. PFL doesn't even like him anymore. It's the whole Andy Woody meme. Like, I'm done playing with you now. They just threw away AJ McKee for Paul Hughes. For good reason, but man, AJ McKee's got talent. Anyways, Vucenic is good. Again, this guy's got great submission skills. And as we saw in the Kutateladze fight, he's got power too. How does Duncan beat him is the question. I don't know. He's got to get lucky and land a big shot. Like he did against Charlie Campbell in the Contender Series. Campbell hasn't been the best in the UFC. Charlie Campbell won his first fight. Charlie Campbell's 2-0 now. Oh, I forgot he beat Trevor Peek. Honestly, it's not a bad victory for Charlie Campbell in the Contender for Chris Duncan. But right, that's how I think that's his only way to beat Vucenic is if he catches him on the feet. But I mean, Vucenic went 8 rounds with Paul Hughes, 5 rounds with Morgan Charriere, and those guys weren't able to knock him out. I don't expect Chris Duncan to find the button. I think, again, Vucenic just has his way everywhere in this one, whether it be on the ground, whether it be on the feet. I think Vucenic will win. Ultimately, I think it's going to be a takedown, something that Vucenic wasn't able to accomplish in his first UFC fight against a good credentialed fighter in Guram Kutateladze. In this fight against the Scottish Duncan, I do think he finds the takedown, and I think he makes short work of Chris Duncan on the ground. I get it again. We're picking Vucenic to submit him, a fight after Duncan got a submission of his own. But Vucenic is just that good. I really think so. And Manuel Torres made quick work of Chris Duncan on the ground once he got a takedown. I'd expect Vucenic to do the same exact thing. Torres submitted Duncan with a rear naked choke. Vucenic has gone to the rear naked choke multiple times, retained his Cage Warriors championship against James Hendon with the standing rear naked choke. He's more than capable of any sub. And I think, again, he's going to be able to easily find that submission on the ground against Chris Duncan if he doesn't find a way for the knockout early. But again, I do think Vucenic does chase the takedown early. I think maybe he lands, maybe follows up a big shot with the takedown, or maybe drops Duncan. But this is obviously, for the most part, a showcase fight for Jordan Vucenic on a main card of a UFC fight night in London in front of a crowd. Vucenic picks up the win in his second UFC fight. I'm taking the British Jordan Vucenic. The Epidemic wins the fight by first round submission. So we go on to the strawweight division. Molly McCann versus Istela Nunes. I hope this fight gets canceled. I really hope it does. Molly McCann does not deserve to win in this fight. I'm going to say it outright. Molly McCann's winning. I've been saying this for the longest time. I hate Molly McCann. I really do. She pisses me off. And it all started when she brought that damn belt in the octagon from the crowd and waved it up like she won the actual belt. Now, it's not all Molly McCann's fault. She's really annoying, and Patty gets on my nerves sometimes too. Not as much as Molly does, obviously. But the UFC Europe Twitter account made it the worst. They just did it. It was bad enough Molly McCann brought the replica belt into the ring. It's funny when Chael does it. It's funny, but Chael's undefeated and undisputed, obviously, and Chael is a Hall of Famer. But I'm so sorry I compared Chael Sonnen to Molly McCann. It disgusts me, actually, that Chael Sonnen came up in the same sentence as Molly McCann. Because Chael's actually a world-class fighter. Molly McCann sucks at fighting. She sucks. But they had to find the one fighter on the roster she could beat. Istela Nunes is horrible at fighting. But anyways, what made it worse was when Molly McCann brought that damn championship into the ring, the replica UFC belt, and the UFC Europe Twitter page tweeted, "That's our champion heart emoji." What happened to the validity of the sport? It's because she beat Luana Carolina? In hindsight, actually not a horrible loss. Or not a horrible win, actually. It's really not. I know Luana Carolina lost to a 39-year-old Joanne Wood in Wood's retirement fight, but actually she has won 3 fights in a row. I don't care. She's probably going to beat Montana De La Rosa before that fight got canceled. Anyways, though, since the Luana Carolina fight, my goodness, has the UFC just tried to give Molly McCann the easiest fights ever. I've known Molly McCann's horrible. I've known this since I first watched her in the UFC. The first memory I have of Molly McCann, I'll be honest, I wasn't watching Cage Warriors back in 2018. I just wasn't. Was her getting choked out unconscious by Jillian Robertson, okay? They gave her some fights. She fights Laura, Procopio, I think her name was. Her name's Laura Fritzen now. In the UFC Apex, on one of those fight night cards. Fritzen's now 1-2 in the UFC. She's obviously out of the UFC. Got submitted by Casey O'Neill, and they sent her out. But Molly McCann lost to Laura Fritzen, who got cut from the UFC at 1-2. That's when I knew Molly McCann just sucked. When she lost that fight. And how easily the Scozzy Casey O'Neill dominated Laura Procopio. Molly McCann then beats Ji-Yeon Kim. You know what? Honestly, not a bad fight. Really not. Ji-Yeon Kim could have won, but Ji-Yeon Kim always got screwed on her decisions. First and third rounds for Ji-Yeon Kim. Watch that fight. She wins, I think. I don't know. I'm not going to complain that much about that one. But then after that, in comes Paddy the Batty. Right? Paddy the Batty was on the Ji-Yeon Kim Molly McCann card, which was obviously made event by Darren Till's abysmal performance against Derek Brunson. But you bring in Paddy, and now Molly McCann has attached herself to Paddy Pimblett. I guess they were friends before, but anyways, they just become so insufferable, man. It's just, God. And then so, all right, now we got to push Molly McCann. She knocks out Luana Carolina with the luckiest spinning back elbow ever. Then she knocks out Hannah Goldie. It's like, all right, Hannah Goldie sucks. They gave her Erin Blanchfield, which was actually really surprising, I'm not going to lie. I called it at the time. I was like, this is a clear, all right, we're just trying to put a name on Erin Blanchfield. I was really happy when that fight happened. But then they go back to England in 2023. Aspinall Tybura main event. They give her Julia Stolyarenko. This is when we knew Molly McCann was horrible. She lost to Julia Stolyarenko, who was on a 5-fight losing streak. It was just like this fight. They give her Diana Belbizia after that. Oh my God. All right, cool. Slightly better than Istela Nunes, Diana Belbizia. Like, slightly better. And then Molly McCann gave her Bruna Brazil. It's a layup, and she lost to Bruna Brazil, who's part of Fighting Nerds. We don't talk about it because she's not that good and she just lost to Kong Wang. We only talk about the good Fighting Nerds, by the way. There's a lot of guys on that team. Thiago Moises trains with the Fighting Nerds. We just don't hear about it because he's not knocking everybody out. Credit to them, they're fun, but like, if you knew how many UFC fighters fought in Fighting Nerds, you know, it's still really impressive. But like, guys, Kanyan Krushneni fights with the Fighting Nerds. Moises, the Fighting Nerds guy. Who else is in the UFC fighting out Fighting Nerds? Bruna Brazil, obviously, they just don't talk about her. But yeah, Krushneni, who's not been very good. Moises, who's solid, but right, I mean, there are guys who train out of this gym and cross-train in this gym like Prates does. Anyways, Molly McCann lost to Bruna Brazil, who got outstruck by Loma Lukbumi in her fight before that. I get it, Loma Lukbumi. Oh, the Muay Thai. She's from Thailand or whatever. God. I haven't even talked about Istela Nunes. That was my hatred for Molly McCann. I dislike her. How is Istela Nunes in the UFC? This is just such crap, man. It's like, where's the integrity of the sport? One time, like, why is Istela Nunes getting this fight? Well, no, I know why she's getting this fight, because they want Molly McCann to win. But it's like, it's so obvious. Istela Nunes is 0-4 in the UFC. Oriani Carnelossi subbed her. Sam Hughes beat her by decision. Yasmin Ayargi, that was just we need Yasmin to win a fight, so they gave her Istela Nunes. I thought that was it for Istela Nunes. 0-3 in the UFC. Nope. Victoria Dudakova knocked her out. It was a doctor stoppage, it was an injury, but still. Yeah, it was not a knockout. But TKO win. Dudakova gets the takedown. Istela Nunes injures her elbow, I believe. Whatever. Guys, Dudakova's horrible. And we know Dudakova's horrible because she lost to Sam Hughes in her last fight. And then Fatima Klein dominated her. God, man. Istela Nunes is still in the UFC, guys. Just so Molly McCann can beat her. And you know what's going to happen, guys? Molly McCann's going to knock her out in the first round, which it just pains me to say, but I know it's happening. And if she doesn't, I'm going to laugh so hard. I hope I get this wrong. I hope Istela Nunes beats her. I hope Istela Nunes finds a way to a takedown, gets on her back, and chokes her out. But Molly McCann's going to win. She'll knock her out. She'll probably hit her with a spinning back elbow. I'm not going to lie. Istela Nunes, she'll get hit with anything. She's not very good. And Istela Nunes will go to 6-6 in her professional mixed martial arts career. 6-6! It's an embarrassment. Molly McCann by first round knockout. I'm so pissed off. Oh, God. This fight's fun. I think I know how it's gonna go, but Kevin Holland's taking on Gunnar Nelson. Don't know what Gunnar Nelson did to deserve this fight. I don't know what he deserved to get the Kevin Holland rub. Because it's like, at this point, it's crazy I'm talking about Kevin Holland like this now, but I think it's a real conversation we need to have. It's like when Tony Ferguson fought Michael Chiesa. It's like, all right, like, okay, we know he's gonna win. And obviously, again, yes, Kevin Holland has a chance in this fight. I'm going to get to some reasoning on why maybe Holland can actually win this one. But it's like when Tony Ferguson fought Michael Chiesa. We were thinking, okay, well, like, all right, Chiesa's going to obviously submit him in the first round or beat him bad. I don't know how he's going to beat him, but we knew Chiesa was going to win. I was like, all right, what did Chiesa do to deserve this? He's old. He hasn't fought in 2 years. Why does he get to beat Tony Ferguson? You might as well make a name off of Tony Ferguson. I'd rather, for as sad as it's going to sound, I'd rather watch Tony Ferguson be on the opposite side of a highlight reel than, oh, Chiesa dragged him down and submitted him. You know? But hey, Tony Ferguson gets to fight Dylan Dennis in May. A fight he should actually win. If he doesn't beat Dylan Dennis, oh my God, man, Connor's going to go batshit. It's going to be hilarious. Anyways, regardless of what happens, Connor's going to be coked up and ready to tweet. Gunnar Nelson, Kevin Holland. Yeah, I think Gunnar Nelson submits him in the first round. I really think so. I question where Kevin Holland's at with the sport at this point. And obviously, they gave him the bag to fight Hamzat. He got $1 million for that fight, give or take. Maybe $500,000, regardless. It was enough. No, it was probably $1 million because it was enough for Kevin Holland to not really care anymore. Just be honest. Kevin Holland is a shell of his former self. He's not motivated anymore. Obviously, again, he's had the whole, back and forth with the reporters saying, I don't care about the belt. And that's fine. You don't have to care for the belt. Obviously, Holland's just in it for the money. I'm happy for the guy. Truly, go get your bag while you're in the sport, right? I mean, it's tough to make money in mixed martial arts, at least a lot of it. Obviously, more money than I'm making right now. But shout out to Kevin Holland, right? I mean, getting those performance bonuses, staying active, right? Holland does get paid. My thing is, again, how long does the UFC keep Kevin Holland around if he keeps losing? I genuinely don't know. Yes, he's always a main card guy. But if he loses this fight, Kevin Holland would have lost 3 in a row and 5 out of his last 6. The only win being over Michal Zolshashek. I do question where Kevin Holland is at because the UFC's paying him quite a bit. I get Holland does sell some, so they will keep him around, but how many times are they going to put up with Holland losing, though? I don't know. And the problem with this, too, is they're giving him such a shitty stylistic matchup. Why is he fighting Gunnar Nelson? I have nothing against Gunnar Nelson. I want to make this very clear. Gunnar Nelson has not fought in 2 years. His last one came at UFC 286, Usman versus Edwards 3. It was a submission victory over Brian Barberena. It was a very easy fight to pick. We had Nelson by first round sub. It was the most obvious pick. Barberena has no ground game, and it honestly reminds me of this too. But Gunnar Nelson is 36 years old. He does not need to fight Kevin Holland. He does not need the rub of beating Kevin Holland, who obviously has a name. Why does he get to beat Holland in this spot? And we know what's going to happen. We could have given Holland a fun fight, a striker that would have been a back and forth war, but yet we're giving him Gunnar Nelson. It's almost like the UFC wants Holland out. Now, the one thing that does make me a little bit concerned about this pick is, all right, Holland does kind of have to win eventually. He does, because Holland is too good to not win eventually. I know, again, we question how much he cares about the sport at this point in time, and that's 100% valid. But Holland will have to win one of these fights eventually, just in general, because Kevin Holland's too good to not win these fights. I do think Nelson destroys him on the ground. I don't know if it's as quick as the Reiner de Ridder fight was, but we saw that one coming from a mile away. Trust me, RDR's really good. Does he beat Bo Nickel in Des Moines likely in May? I don't know. It's a really tough fight for Bo Nickel. I think Bo Nickel probably wins, though. Hear me out. We'll get to that in May. I think right now I'd probably pick Bo Nickel. I think that fight has the potential to be really boring, by the way, though. I think, hear me out, Bo Nickel might outstrike Reiner de Ridder. Might. I don't know. I could see that really happening. I could see it being like the Paul Craig fight. Anyways, because I don't think, maybe Nickel takes him down, but I don't think he wants to play with that. I don't think he wants to try to get in that guard. I don't know. My point is, Holland is kind of due for one. He is. I could see this fight going like the Chiesa fight, where, all right, you know, Holland does kind of wobble Chiesa. He finds a way in the clinch, gets the darts, and submits him. He's not going to submit Gunnar Nelson, obviously, but I could just see him stunning Nelson really early. 100% I could see that. The thing is, Gunnar Nelson just doesn't fight. He's fought 2 times since the pandemic. Takashi Sato decision victory, Brian Barberena sub in the first round. Exactly. Why does Gunnar Nelson deserve this fight? As someone who likes Kevin Holland, kinda, I'd rather see him lose to an up-and-coming guy rather than a 36-year-old who's fought twice in the last 5 years. Maybe it's Nelson's retirement fight, but at that point, like, all right, give him a guy he can easily, well, this is a fight he can easily win. I think the odds are highway robbery. Minus 135 feels really good for Gunnar Nelson. I get it, he's old, but man, it's just a takedown and a submission. I'm going Gunnar Nelson first round sub. I am. I hate it. I hope Holland knocks him out. Legitimately, I really hope he does. I just don't think Gunnar Nelson, I don't think Kevin Holland has an answer. I think it's a takedown. I think it's a submission. I think it's kind of like the Brian Barberena fight. Nelson had to control that entire first round, worked up to the mount, eventually got the armbar, subbed Barberena with 10 seconds to go in the round. If not, I think it's a Nelson, you know, just kind of laying on Holland because he's capable of doing this for 15 minutes. Look at the Takashi Sato fight, right? I don't know. Nelson only comes out to fight in England. It's just weird. He fights once a year whenever they come to England. Didn't get the call in 2024, probably hurt. Yeah, I don't understand. Gunnar Nelson first round submission. Not excited though to watch Kevin Holland just get subbed really quickly. I don't know. I hope Holland wins. I hope Holland, you know, fights off the takedowns, uses his reach, stays away, and knocks out Nelson, but I just don't see it happening. Co-main event, light heavyweight division, likely a title eliminator. I think the winner of this fight probably fights Yuri Prochazka to fight the winner of the Ankalaev and Alex Pereira rematch later in the year, likely Abu Dhabi. But here you go, co-main event spot. Jan Blachowicz takes on Carlos Ulberg. Jan has not fought since he fought Alex Pereira in Salt Lake City, Utah in July of 2023. He was booked against Alexander Rakic early last year in Canada on the Duplessis-Strickland undercard. Fight fell through. Blachowicz is now back at the age of 42 to take on Carlos Ulberg. Can he make that late title push similar to the man who he lost the world championship to all those years ago in Glover Teixeira? I don't know. I think it's doable, man. I think it is. Ulberg's good, yes. He hasn't fought anybody like Jan Blachowicz yet, though. My thing is Jan just going to all of a sudden look really old in this fight? Could happen. 100% could happen. You know, this could be the fight where, all right, Blachowicz is just kind of washed up now. He's 42. He pulled out the Rakic fight with an injury, right, with a shoulder injury. We don't know how he's going to recover from that. And Ulberg's a really good striker. He's got a lot of power. But at the same time, man, Blachowicz has fought so many power punches before. He fought Didn't have to fight Prochazka. Fought Ankalaev. Went the distance with Ankalaev. Fought Rakic. Obviously, Rakic got hurt, but ended up winning that fight, right? I mean, we've seen Jan fought Adesanya, didn't get finished, right? And the last time Blachowicz got knocked out was in 2019 or 2019 against Thiago Santos, right? I mean, Blachowicz is a tough guy to put away. It's not like his chin's always been questionable. It hasn't, honestly. He's had a pretty good chin his entire career. Hell, he went the distance with Pereira, didn't get knocked out, right? I mean, Blachowicz fought Pereira until Ankalaev, obviously, in his closest fight at 205 pounds. I don't think we should overlook Jan Blachowicz in this fight. He is an underdog here, and hey, I'm going to cash in on this. Plus 185, give me Jan Blachowicz. I think Ulberg's good 100%. I think the UFC was trying to set up Ulberg and Pereira next 100%. If Pereira had beaten Magomed Ankalaev, I think this was the next fight, the winner of this fight regardless. I think we would have just foregone, Yuri Prochazka. You just have to wait, obviously. Because I hope they were trying to make John Jones, Tom Aspinall, and then you still need one more fight for Pereira until he goes up. Give him Carlos Ulberg, another kickboxer, CKB guy. It makes sense. I just don't think he gets by Jan Blachowicz, though. I get it. Ulberg's got talent. He's huge for the weight class. He's 6'4". He's got a huge reach, 77 inches. Actually, Blachowicz has a bigger reach. Never mind. But still, I get it. Ulberg's a really good kickboxer, right? The Volkan Oezdemir fight left so much to be desired. It really did. It wasn't the most impressive, man. It really wasn't. It was a boring kickboxing affair that was won by Ulberg. And again, it didn't really impress anybody, if I'm being honest. Yeah, he won. But man, we were looking for a finish in that fight to propel himself, obviously, to take that next step to potentially becoming a title challenger against a former title challenger in his own right in Oezdemir. Right, Ulberg went through the weight class, right, knocked out Uhor Potieria, submitted Dawun Jung, knocked out Alonzo Menafield in 12 seconds. Really weird game plan in that fight for Menafield, but regardless, right, Ulberg won that one. He's not going to be able to chin Blachowicz, I don't think. Unless, again, Blachowicz all of a sudden has gotten old at 42, which would make sense, right? Coming off the shoulder injury, right? Hasn't fought in 2.5 years. I get that. I think Jan Blachowicz wrestles Carlos Ulberg. CKB is used to Jan Blachowicz. Obviously, Jan fought Israel Adesanya for the belt at 205 pounds. How did Jan win that fight? He wrestled Izzy. He wrestled Alex Pereira, arguably beat Poatan. Obviously, the decision went to Pereira. I don't have a problem with that. But it was a close fight. Jan could wrestle and we just forget about it. Because yes, he got outclassed on the ground by Glover. Obviously, Glover submitted him right away. Magomed Ankalaev saw a lot of success, obviously, in the 4th and 5th rounds of their title fight using his wrestling. We just haven't seen Jan's wrestling in a while because, well, we saw in the Pereira fight, but we don't always think about it because, yes, the better grapplers beat him, obviously. But Jan Blachowicz is by far a better grappler than Carlos Ulberg. Sure, Ulberg could catch him and dominate on the feet. I just don't see it happening because at the same time, legendary Polish power, right? Jan Blachowicz can hang on the feet. Again, I don't know what he's going to be at 42. Prior to the Rakic leg injury, the fight was very close. Rakic won the second round, obviously, with his wrestling too. But, first round, the feet probably went to Jan, definitely, right? I mean, Blachowicz was outstriking Magomed Ankalaev, something that Alex Pereira, I thought, was doing, but had a lot of trouble with Ankalaev. And Blachowicz fought fairly well on the feet in that fight, man. And, he managed with Pereira on the feet as well. Again, the whole thing in this fight is, yes, Blachowicz age. We've not seen him since the summer of 2023. A lot has happened since the summer of 2023. Ultimately, though, I am going to go with the Polish fighter. I'm going with Jan Blachowicz. I'm going Jan Blachowicz by decision. I think he makes it interesting enough on the feet. I think he does tie up Ulberg, and I think he gets him in the clinch. I think he does take Ulberg down. Nothing City Kickboxing doesn't know. The camp knows that, Jan's going to wrestle Ulberg, I think, and I don't think there's anything they can do about it. Ulberg has been in the sport for a while now at this point, right? I mean, he made his professional MMA debut, technically 2011, but didn't really get started until 2018. UFC debut in 2021. He has not fought somebody at the level of Jan Blachowicz, and honestly, with the wrestling of Jan Blachowicz just yet. Trust me, again, if Ulberg does win this fight, Prochazka will chin him 100%. If Kenny and Nzechukwu chin Carlos Ulberg, which we predicted, by the way, Prochazka will do the same thing. But I think Blachowicz does kind of send Ulberg down a little bit. Ulberg's 34, we'll see. But I mean, yeah, I don't think he's on the level of Blachowicz yet. The only thing I am concerned about, obviously, is Blachowicz's age and his ability at this point in time. I'm still taking Jan to beat Carlos Ulberg. We're going unanimous decision for the legendary Polish power. To the main event, in the welterweight division, obviously here comes Leon Edwards, his first fight since losing the world championship to Bilal, remember the name, Muhammad. I don't think he's getting a title shot if he beats Sean Brady. I just don't think so. Obviously, Shavkat looks like the next one in line, and we can talk about potential opponents for the winner of this fight because obviously the winner will be in the midst of the title hunt at 170 pounds. But it's a tough fight. right? This was originally supposed to be Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena. A tougher fight, don't get me wrong. JDM's great. Bilal and JDM, if you've been watching the channel, you know who I think is going to win that fight. I think you can probably tell the way I've been, praising one of these fighters a lot recently. Again, we'll get into that full prediction in May when they're fighting in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, at the Bell Center. But, the winner of this fight, Leon and Sean Brady, I'll say it, I think the winner should fight Joaquin Buckley. I think Buckley deserves a big fight. The winner over Colby Covington, taking that fight on short notice. The winner over Wonderboy before. Let's see if Buckley, is ready for that next level. I wouldn't mind the winner of Buckley versus the winner of this fight getting a title shot, legitimately. Because we know Bilal's fighting Jack Della, and the winner of that fight is fighting Shavkat. The only missing pieces to this entire equation is Ian Gary and Kamaru Usman. Hell, let them fight each other. And then again, you just get lower in the weight class. Maybe Colby fights Ian Gary. I have no problem with that. Is Usman really fighting anymore? And is Usman coming back to 70? If he does, probably he's at 85 pounder. So yeah, the next step to that equation is just Colby and Gary. Perfect. Okay, anyways, likely international fight week, I would think. Leon Sean Brady, again, I don't think Sean Brady's able to have the success that Belal Muhammad had. I don't think so. You might not want to hear it. I do think Belal Muhammad's a special talent. I really think he is. I think Belal Muhammad is the best fighter in the weight class right now. I'm giving away the prediction in May. I think Belal Muhammad is the best fighter at welterweight right now. I truly believe so. Now, he's been talking about going up and fighting Duplessis. He would not stand a chance. But I think Belal's the best welterweight in the world. I think so. You can hate all you want. And trust me, I've had my fair share of hate towards Belal Muhammad just because, it's just funny to hate on Belal. He's boring, whatnot. That's fair. I've been on that side of the coin before too. I'm done hating on Belal. After that title fight, I truly appreciate Belal for who he is as a fighter. I think Belal's a great fighter. I really think he is. So I don't think Sean Brady's able to replicate the Belal Muhammad performance. That was incredible, what Belal did to Leon. It was. It was a one-sided beatdown. It really was. Leon had a round in the fight, maybe two I only gave Leon one personally. But anyways, Belal just out-wrestled him the entire fight. Very impressive, right? I only gave Leon the third. I actually gave Belal the first round. So, I don't know. I had 1, 2, 4, 5 for Belal Muhammad. Belal's really good, man. I mean, I'll always go back to that sequence. Belal, dips for the high crotch. You don't see high crotches in MMA anymore. I mean, the last high crotch, and I probably, obviously missing a couple, but the last high crotch in a big time fight that I can remember is Randy Couture. Randy Couture loved the high crotch, right? The high C. Belal dipping to the high crotch, obviously working on the feet, using his ones and twos against Leon, dipping in the high crotch and dumping Leon on his head in that fight. I mean, my goodness, that's a piece of art, man. I mean, high level wrestling, when it's done like that, I have so much respect for these guys. Belal with the high level wrestling with the high crotch, Islam with the ankle pick into the high sweep against Dustin Poirier at 302 in New Jersey to the submission, obviously. Beautiful stuff. That's great, the great use of wrestling in mixed martial arts. Holding your opponent up against the cage for 10 minutes at the end of the fight like Magomed Ankalaev did, that's not great. But what Belal did and what Islam does, I mean, again, Islam's always been a fun wrestler. I think Belal's a really fun fighter too. Just, yes, he was very boring in his early UFC run, but Belal's last couple fights have not been that bad, guys. It really hasn't. And the Sean Brady fight, pretty good. Belal TKO'd Sean Brady. Anyways, I don't think Sean Brady's going to be able to take down Leon like that. I don't think so. I'm willing to put a couple things into account with the Leon Edwards performance against Belal Muhammad. One, Belal's that good. Two, I think the time did kind of affect Leon a little bit. He did say he was tired in there. I don't know if that's just an excuse. Obviously, it's an excuse, but to what degree, I don't know. But that's, again, another thing. This one's going to be at night in England, because obviously this card's during the day for us here in the States. I don't think Sean Brady's going to be able to pull off the same, Belal performance. And on top of that, I don't know what you want to make of the Colby Covington Leon Edwards performance. I just don't know. I thought Colby won the last 2 rounds pretty decisively. I thought Colby won 4 and 5 in that fight against Leon. It has since come out, Colby broke his foot in the first round of that fight. If you want to believe Colby or not, I don't really care. Colby does say a lot. Now, obviously, Colby's fight against Buckley wasn't great, but you can still make the case with Covington. Sure, he did take that fight on 2 weeks' notice against Buckley, right? He was just trying to campaign for a Shavkat fight. He ended up getting Buckley instead. We will truly see what Colby has left in the tank, assuming he fights Ian Gary over the summer. If he fights Wonderboy, we're really not going to know truly how good Colby is still. Because, yes, Colby will dominate Stephen Thompson and probably submit him, honestly. I don't know, we'll see. If Colby fights Ian Gary, we're going to see how great Colby is still. I truly think Colby's working his way towards a professional wrestling career, though. I really think he is. I think he's starting to turn face, too. I think he's really dropping the gimmick really shortly. Colby wasn't able to out-wrestle Leon early in the fight. He did late in the fight. I think, again, though, if Sean Brady has success wrestling, it's going to be like Colby did in very few spots. Where, yes, again, at the end of the fight, yes, Colby's on top of Leon. He won the 5th round. I thought Colby should have won the 4th round too. But anyways, right? I mean, I think it's just going to be very limited success out of Sean Brady wrestling. I don't think it's going to be a dominant display of wrestling that Brady puts on Edwards here. And on the feet, Leon Edwards is levels ahead of Sean Brady on the feet. We know that. That's not, I don't even need to get into that. Bilal Muhammad TKO'd Sean Brady. Is one of those fights, again, both those guys wrestling, they're both the wrestling games, even each other out. Sean Brady was the one desperate for takedowns. Bilal was like, oh, I'm cool striking. And obviously Bilal TKO'd him, right? Remember the name. If Brady's not able to get a takedown, he's obviously going to lose. And I think he will find takedowns. I think this is going to be a fight that's going to be contested both on the feet and on the ground. I don't think Leon knocks him out. Guys, Leon's not a power threat. We've known this. Yes, the head kick knockout of Kamaru Usman's going to go into the Hall of Fame someday, likely. It's going to be one of the all-time moments. It's going to keep getting replayed till the end of UFC, or to the end of time, obviously. But Leon Edwards is not a knockout threat. He's got 3 knockout victories in his UFC run, and 2 of those came before 2018. So, like, again, I don't think Leon's going to knock out Sean Brady because I think this is going to be a very measured fight. I'll be honest, this is all the makings of being a very boring fight, guys. 100%. Because Leon's going to be very calculated. He's going to be trying to stay out the way of getting taken down. He's going to be using his jab. He's going to be using his kicks. Probably not his kicks because he doesn't want to get caught in a takedown, but maybe working the body, obviously. Just Leon is going to stay very measured in this fight. And that's the fight that he should fight against Brady, who is dangerous to take him down, potentially submit him. I don't think he's going to sub Leon, but I think, again, he can just lay on Leon for rounds at a time. I'm taking Edwards, though. I think it's great value at plus money too. We're taking back-to-back dogs in the co-main and the main event. I don't think Brady's able to find that takedown, at least enough. And I think Leon will obviously outstrike him on the feet. And if Sean Brady's not able to have the success like Bilal Muhammad did, I think Leon Edwards wins. Hell, even Usman didn't see that much success wrestling Leon. I get it, the cage grabs and everything. I just don't think Sean Brady's able to fight that high volume of a fight like we thought Colby was going to fight against Leon Edwards and like Bilal Muhammad actually did against Leon Edwards. I don't think Brady's going to be able to have that pace, that full-on cardio pace for 25 minutes, because that is obviously the way to beat Leon Edwards, right? Colby in his prime would have done that to Leon. Usman in his prime would have done that to Leon. And Bilal, who's obviously in his prime right now, did that to Leon as well. The JDM fight would have been very interesting, but I just don't think Sean Brady has the skill set necessary and the gas tank necessary. I get he can go 5 rounds. He did against Gilbert Burns, but in order to beat Leon and be successful in beating Leon, it's just got to be much more up-tempo than he did in the Gilbert Burns fight. I'm going to take Leon Edwards to win. I'm taking Edwards to win the fight by decision. I think he outstrikes Brady. I think Brady's going to get 1 or potentially 2 rounds, but ultimately, yes, I'm going with a decision win for the hometown guy. Leon Rocky Edwards wins in England. And yes, I think the fight next is Joaquin Buckley. Fight night main event, 5-round co-main event of a pay-per-view, either or. Give me Leon and Joaquin Buckley. And yes, I can't believe I'm saying this. Joaquin Buckley is in a #1 contenders fight, because we know Shavkat's fighting the winner of Bilal and Jack Della, so that leaves the only 2 fighters left, Joaquin and Leon Edwards. Leon should not get a title fight after 1 win over Sean Brady. If he beat Jack Della, I'd honestly, I wouldn't be mad at it. Respect to Sean Brady, but he needs another big win. So give me Leon and Joaquin Buckley next for a title eliminator sometime in the summer or the fall. So folks, thank y'all for watching our UFC predictions for UFC London, Edwards versus Brady. If you have not yet though, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy the video. Make sure to comment if you do disagree with any of the picks. We'll be back next week for our UFC Fight Night Mexico predictions with Brandon Moreno and Steve Verseg in the main event. And make sure to stay tuned to Greedo Plays MMA, of course, for more weekly and bi-weekly. Just multiple MMA videos a week. I don't even know what the phrase is for that. So make sure to stay tuned, folks. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below for more. And Mamba forever.